All right, everybody, what's going on? And welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk, the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. Of course, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC, see what else coming at you. And as you can see, man, I got a different setup today, man. My tripod actually broke on me, so I, I got to improvise till I can get me another one later. So y'all disregard the crazy camera angle. I had to try to do what I could do to make this thing happen. So as you can tell, man, we're gonna take a few minutes out of the day and talk a little bit of SWAC basketball. We're not gonna go too deep because we are still knee deep in football, but basketball is actually basically on the horizon, uh, and it's gonna start soon. I mean, they already have some exhibition games going on, so the actual season will be starting up real soon. So I wanted to kind of go ahead and just put out a little bit of like the all conference preseason, all conference teams, and the order of finish, and my thoughts on some of those things. You know, we're gonna just kind of go through some men's and women's basketball, and we're gonna just chop it up for a few. So y'all make sure that y'all subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hit that notification bell so you can be alerted to videos like this that drop on different days other than my Wednesday and Sunday schedule. So make sure y'all hit that notification bell and you'll get the notification for this when it drops. Um, Other than that, man, hit the socials. Facebook is Swag Talk, Instagram Swag Talk, Twitter Swag Talk 76. If you'd like to donate to the show, you can hit the Cash App $ Swag Talk. And without further ado, man, let's go ahead and talk a little basketball. We're gonna start off before we get into the previews. We're gonna start off with HBCU Go, man. They are still doing big things, man. HBCU Go is still making some things happen, and they have announced that they will be airing SWAC games on their channel and their app. So this is great. They're gonna show the men's and women's games of that broadcast. So you get a double header, men's and women's basketball. So I think it's a total of 38 games will be shown. So that's a good look. And we're gonna go ahead and run through those games real quick. Again, these are men's and women's games that will be shown. They start their broadcast on January 7th. When Texas Southern goes to Pine Bluff. That's a 1:30 and a 3:30 tip off. Women 1:30, men 3:30. Southern and Bethune-Cookman face off on January 9th, which will be the second matchup. January 14th, Alabama State at Alabama A&M. January 16th, Jackson State at Texas Southern. January 21st, Bethune-Cookman at Jackson State. January 23rd, Prairie View at Alabama A&M. January 28th, Jackson State at Grambling. January 30th, Alabama State at FAMU. February 4th, Grambling at Alabama State. February 6th, Valley at Alcorn. February 11th, Alabama State at Pine Bluff. February 13th, Texas Southern at Southern. February 18th, Alcorn at Jackson. February 20th, Prairie View at Mississippi Valley. February 25th, Southern at Bethune-Cookman. February 27th, Texas Southern at Alcorn. March 2nd, Jackson State at Prairie View. Jackson State at Pine Bluff. And March 4th, Texas Southern at Prairie View to close out the schedule. So that's a nice blend. Everybody is gonna be on there. You got a couple of nice rivalry matchups, a couple games that may not seem like they may be teams who have a lot in common, but that they're opportunity for teams to be showcased at home and a couple at home, a few on the road more often. But this is to me, this is a great look, man. I really think that HBCU Go is doing some good things, and I think that if they can continue to grow and build, the sky's the limit. Speaking of televised basketball, ESPN dropped their list. They have right now 5 games that'll be shown. January 16th, Alcorn at Prairie View. That's the ESPNU broadcast. That's 8 o'clock. These are all men's games. January 30th, Jackson State at Southern, 8 p.m. ESPNU. February 6th, Bethune-Cookman at Texas Southern, ESPNU. And then February 18th, at 3 o'clock, Southern and Grambling play in Salt Lake City for the HBCU basketball classic at the All-Star for All-Star weekend in the NBA. So that's a big thing. Southern versus Grambling. That game will be on ESPN2 on February 18th at 3 p.m. And then February 20th at 8 p.m. is Florida A&M at Alabama A&M, also an ESPNU broadcast. The men's and women's tournaments will also be televised on ESPN Plus. So just want to put that out there right now. So just wanted to kind of share what the television broadcast schedule kind of looks like at this point. Got some good games that are gonna be on both, and you should definitely keep your eyes on that Southern Grambling game for All-Star Weekend. I think that's definitely a big game and a big matchup and a big opportunity for everybody to get exposure on national stage. All right, so we're gonna start off our preview with the women's side of things. Of course, this is the JSU Invitational. This team hasn't lost a game in like 2 years, so they ran through the league. Had a couple close calls here and there, but they were able to make it through the league and the tournament and give LSU a damn good game and a run for their money. They return a lot. They're gonna still be tough. They are picked to win the SWAC again this year. They received 19 first place votes out of every first place vote. Alabama State is picked to finish second. Last season, Bama State. Last season they finished third in the league last season, so they're expecting them to finish up at second. Southern is picked at third. They finished the season at fourth place last season. Alabama A&M is picked to finish fourth. They finished second. That was like a big tie for second place on the women's side. So Bama A&M is picked to finish fourth. Pine Bluff is picked to finish fifth, and Pine Bluff is a team that finished 9-9 in conference, and they finished at eighth place. So they predicting them to move up to fifth. They have some talented players, including the preseason SWAC Player of the Year, Zay Green. So they had, Pine Bluff has size, and the shooting wasn't that great last season, but they have size, and size in women's basketball can carry you a long way. It definitely keeps you in a lot of games. Now the shooting has to come around, but they seem to have been recruiting pretty well in this offseason. Grambling is picked to finish sixth place. That's right where they were last season, 10-8, and good for sixth place. Prairie View is picked to finish seventh, which is where they finished. So pretty much Prairie View and Grambling picked to be in the same spot. Texas Southern down to eighth place from fifth place. That TSU team last season was a very, very explosive team, scored a lot of points, could get the ball up and down the floor. And they returned some playmakers. So I would be surprised if they finished in eighth place. They may be able to make a push to the middle of the pack. Bethune-Cookman at ninth place, which is where they basically finished at. FAMU at 10th place, which is where they finished at. Alcorn 11th. They finished last, and Valley is picked last. So Valley had finished 11th last season. So they kind of flip-flopped those last two teams. But pretty much the bottom four is the same as last season's bottom four. Those teams are the teams that won't make the tournament, the conference tournament. They're predicting basically the same teams to make the conference tournament. The order just kind of shuffled up a little bit, but Jackson State's still at the top. Somebody's going to have to knock them off the throne to make anything happen. So looking at the preseason honors, like I said, preseason player of the year, Zay Green from Arkansas Pine Bluff. She had a really strong season last season. She's a transfer from Texas A&M. She averaged 16.4 points per game. She was sixth in rebounding with 201 rebounds on the season. She was fifth in steals with 54 and third in assists with a 5.0 per game average. So she was able to do a lot for this Pine Bluff team, and that team was actually, they were pretty dangerous toward the end of the season. The defensive player of the year is Deja Woodard from Jackson State. She finished 7th in rebounding at 7.4 rebounds per game, 11th in blocks. She registered 23 steals and 16 assists last season. And she helped. She was a big factor on that JSU team, making the run through the SWAC and through the tournament. I'm looking at the preseason player, all SWAC first team, Zay Green from Pine Bluff, Ayana Emanuel. She came on really strong last season. She had a 40-plus point game and a couple of other nice scoring games on the season. Adriana Avent from Texas Southern, another young lady that can score the ball really well in that offense. Diana Rosenthal was a key scorer for Prairie View's offense and a distributor. Maya Crump from Jackson State rounds out the first team. Second team, Shemaya Ward from Alabama State, another key factor in that Alabama State team that made a late push and actually was second place for a good while in the season. Genovia Johnson from Southern, she's kind of like a wrecking ball out there, man. She's a dynamo. You watch her play. She just does all the dirty work, get up and down the floor. She can, get to the basket. And she's gonna definitely be the spark plug for Southern's team. Jayla Crawford from Alabama State, Kashana Luckett, and Deja Woodard from Jackson State round out the second team. So just looking at this list, this is a very solid list of players. And should be a very entertaining season. I think both, I think it's gonna, JSU was, they were a team that really was dominant. Alabama A&M was a really good defensive team. Southern was a good defensive team. Southern offensively wasn't that great, but defensively they were really, really solid. And I expect all of these teams to continue to battle it out. If you're gonna get Jackson, you're gonna have to probably get them on when they come to your place. It's tough to win in Jackson. This is a team that shot 44% from the field all season long and held their opponents to 35%. So they don't just score; they play great defense, and you can expect to see pretty much the same thing. And I'm really excited to get to SWAC play. I mean, obviously, you have the non-conference play, but it's really SWAC players is really where it's at. So we're gonna kind of not really focus on basketball till probably around SWAC play. But if we get some games of interest that come through in the non-conference scheduled portion of the season, then we'll definitely touch on it or any performances that stand out. But of course, football first and foremost. So just want to point that out. So in case anybody that is just looking for straight basketball content is gonna come in a minute. We're gonna jump over to the men's side, and this side is again gonna be up for grabs. Alcorn won the men's regular season and got to the SWAC championship in Texas Southern, who is the team of March. They went on a run in the tournament and they ran through Alcorn and Grambling in the first two rounds, in the second and third rounds to get the to win the championship and go to the first four and win their first four game in a row. So this team is a team that, like I said, you can count on them to be there at the end of the season. Whether they start slow or start fast, they're always gonna be in the mix. And like I said that multiple times last season when TSU was kind of starting off slow. Don't count these guys out. They know when to turn it on, and they know what is important. And they still almost made a push for their first place spot at the end of the season. So finishing second, but they still were able to make some things happen and put themselves in a good spot. So we're gonna look at the predicted order of finish, and you're gonna see a pretty much the same teams at the top, kind of slightly different order. Texas Southern is picked first, and Alcorn is picked second, and Southern is third, and that's where Southern finished last season. Southern finished third place after leading the conference for quite a while. They had a late season swoon that really knocked them out of the running for the championship. They needed some chaos to get there, and then they had they got beat by Grambling in the conference tournament to knock them out. Prairie View is picked fourth place. Prairie View finished. They finished 8-10 last season. They really did not play to the potential that a lot of people expected Prairie View to play at last season, and they really started off slow um, at the beginning of the season, and they really couldn't really get the ship righted again. But they're picked to finish fourth, so they expected bigger things from Prairie View this season. Florida A&M is picked fifth. FAMU finished in they finished fourth last season. They lose MJ Randolph, who was a guy who was definitely one of the top scorers in the league. Um, that was pretty much their guy. I mean, as he went, they went. So I didn't really think they were a spectacular team without him. So seeing them pick them fifth is a high bar. I think they do have some pieces. They had a couple guys that missed some time last season that came on late, but they should be tough. I mean, they're a team that that can hang in there with you. And they play pretty good defense. They weren't the greatest shooting team, but they played defense. MJ Randolph was actually the leading scorer in the league. So losing a guy like that, averaging 18.8 points per game overall, is a nice little blow to your team. And he also led. He was second in the league in conference scoring at 18.6. So he's a guy who consistently gets you 18, 20, 30 points a game, and he did hit 30 from time to time. So losing a guy like that is definitely something that you're gonna have to try to adjust to. Grambling was picked sixth place, and that they finished in seventh in sixth. They finished in sixth place. Um, so they are basically where they were picked at before, where they finished at. Grambling is a team you don't know what you're gonna get from them. They don't, they play sound defense. They don't really score a lot, but they are a team who can definitely be dangerous. If you're not, if you get caught lacking, they can kind of hurt you. Um, they were like mid pack in scoring, offense and defense. They averaged 69.1 points per game, and they gave up 69.1. So they were pretty much there. Like I said, they didn't shoot great, shooting about 41% on the season. So they like I said, the offense wasn't that great defensively. They shot 32% from three. They were a team who they found a way to ugly up games and get dubs. And they had Sullen's number beating them three times. So that definitely put them in the mix. Jackson State is picked to finish seventh place, and that's where they finished last season. Mo Williams, the new Jackson State head coach coming over from Alabama State, he's gonna try to make some things happen now. So this is a team that they have talent. Maybe the offense to take another uptick because the last few years JSU has been more of a defensive team. So maybe they can take a little bit of an uptick offensively and become more dangerous in that aspect. Eighth place is Bethune-Cookman, and that's a team to really look out for. They finished last season in 10th place. They had an opportunity late in the season to make a push. This team battled injuries all season, and they have Joe French, who is the preseason player of the year. He's a guy that can definitely score the basketball. They brought in a lot. They recruited pretty well. Coach Steers did a great job of bringing in some size and some more guys. So they didn't have the best numbers in terms of depth last season, and they were banged up off and on. But they had guys who could put the ball in the basket when healthy, and having a guy like Joe French can really help that offense explode. They're gonna be dangerous. They picked up a couple big road victories late in the season. They beat Southern on the road. I think they beat Grambling as well. So they picked up a couple of nice victories away from home. They had a slow start to start conference play, but they picked to finish eighth and make the tournament, make their first ever SWAC tournament. So that's definitely a team I would say to keep an eye out on. Alabama A&M lost their coach and lost one of their better players, so they are picked to finish ninth. They finished 10-8 last season, and they were one of those teams that again didn't really do things that great, but they were a dangerous team to play. because they didn't play a really high tempo. They averaged like 61 points per game in conference play, but defensively they allowed 67, which was third. So they did, they were able to kind of keep games close and find ways to win. And they hit a nice mid-season run that put them in that spot. Um, Again, they were a team that didn't shoot great. They were last in 3-point shooting. They only shot 27% in conference play. So they, that really was something that they didn't do well. They were last in field goal percentage as a team in conference play. They were second in rebounding. So that was, they rebounded and they played defense, and they kind of stole points as they could get them. They just was one of those kind of teams. So I guess right now is going to be a kind of a rebuild for them. So we'll see, if they can make that push from ninth into the tournament. Because last season they kind of got hot. Alabama State is another team who they just missed. I think they just missed the tournament. I think Prairie View got in instead of them. They just missed the tournament, and they're picked to finish 10th place. Now, I think the Hornets are going to be dangerous. They, of course, they have a new coach as well coming over from South Carolina State, but this is a team, especially in Montgomery, that's tough to beat. They do have some guys who can put the ball in the basket. I would really keep my eyes on them. I think that anybody probably from the eight, 9, and 10 place teams, I think could easily be teams that can make the tournament. Pine Bluff is picked 11, and that's where they finished last season. They had Sean Williams last season, who was a guy who could really fill it up. He's gone, but this team, is another team that if you're not careful, you can get caught lacking against them. But I don't know if they got enough to make a push for the tournament. And Valley is last, and that's pretty much where Valley has been at. They lost some guys. They lost their coach. They lost a couple other guys on the team. So it's tough to say where Valley, if Valley can make a push. But pretty much I would say anywhere the top 10 teams, any of those teams can make the tournament, and a couple of those bottom six. Let's just say, like I said before, 9 and 10 got just as good a shot at making the tournament as 7 and 8 do. So I think that leads to some real nice parity, and it's going to be tough. Preseason player of the year is Joe French from Bethune-Cookman. He was 4th in the league in scoring at 15.7 points per game. Shot 45% from the field, which was 6th best in the league. He shot 44% from 3. Like I said, he can fill it up, man. He's definitely a shooter. That led the league. And he shot the second most threes in the league at 170. So he made 75 threes out of 170 attempts. And that's a guy, that's efficiency. And that's a guy that you really wanna really see him continue to put the ball in the hoop. And that's that kind of guy. So he's definitely deserving of the preseason player of the year. Defensive player of the year is Jordan Carl Nicholas from TSU. He's a guy that does a little bit of everything. He scores about 9 points a game. He averages 6 rebounds. He's a key guy on defense. He can, he's a guy that can impact the game really without putting the ball in the basket. He was a very vital cog on their defense. I think they're gonna miss Grisham a lot in the middle, but TSU is always gonna have another guy. They lost a couple guys, but you can never count out TSU. Obviously, they're picking him first, and he's a big reason why they are gonna be one of those teams to keep their name in the hunt. So, looking at the all conference first team, Joe French from Bethune-Cookman, Tyrone Lyons from Southern, Cameron Christian from Grambling, Garrett Hicks from Alabama A&M. That's a guy with range. He can fill it up, a little streaky, but he can definitely fill it up. And like I said, Carl Nicholas from Jackson, Texas Southern, rounds out the first team. Dominic Bruton from Alcorn was definitely a key call. in that Alcorn run, along with Keandre Montgomery. They both make second team. Jeremiah Gambrell from Prairie View, another guy that can definitely shoot the ball. He can, as he goes, they go. So you definitely want to keep him in the mix. Bryson Etienne comes over from TSU, goes to Southern. Now he gives Southern another shooter that they need to complement a guy like Lyons. Southern needs that extra shooter, and that was, to me, that probably was what Southern was missing last season. When you had a guy that can get you 15 to 20 points if he's off or a team's keying on him, you need that other guy, and I think Etienne could be that for Southern. He was definitely a guy that was a big part of TSU's offense. TSU's offense was very balanced. They had a bunch of guys between 7 and 10 points per game. So anybody could take that role, and Etienne can play that role for Southern as well. And then John Walker, running the point for TSU, is also on the second team. So that's basically going to do it for our little SWAC preview. I just wanted to come in and kind of make you aware of what's expected in the conference, and we'll talk a bit more basketball as the season progresses. Like I said, we won't really dive into basketball until we get into conference play. But we'll kind of stick our toe in from time to time as we make those moves. I think one other tidbit I did want to touch on news wise. Where is it? The Pac-12 and the SWAC have coined what they call the Legacy Series, and that's going to take place through the 2022 and 2023 seasons. And it's basically a cycle of games in the early season where they're going to have 6 women's matches that are also a part of this. And to kind of take a look at it, these two teams, each team will play somebody. They're going to kind of mix it up. FAMU and Oregon men. This is the men's basketball schedule. FAMU at Oregon on November 7th. Alabama State at USC on November 10th. Southern will be at Arizona on November 11th. Colorado will be at Grambling on November 11th. Arizona State at Texas Southern on November 13th. And November 15th, Washington State will be at Prairie View. So 6 matchups between 6 teams from each conference. 3 at home and 3 on the road. So 3 SWAC teams will get a Pac-12 team to play in their arena. And that's, you rarely get a high mid-major to come to your gym, let alone a Power 5 team. So that's definitely a nice look there. So that's early November for the men's side. On the women's side, November 11th, Grambling is at Arizona State. Prairie View is at Washington State. That's on November 13th. November 14th, on Monday, Oregon comes to Southern. So that's definitely a game that if you guys can turn out and pack the house on these SWAC when these SWAC teams host these matchups, that would be great. Utah would be going to Valley on December 1st. TSU would be at Arizona on December 14th, and December 18th, Florida A&M will be at Cal. So those are the women's matchups in this Pac-12 Legacy Challenge. So hopefully this is something that they can kind of keep going. It would be, it's definitely something that can help both. It can definitely help the SWAC schools. You get a bigger name to come to your arena in the non-conference, which saves you a road trip in some of these situations. So definitely something hopefully that they can keep doing. And it can hopefully increase the level of basketball and the eyes on basketball, especially in the non-conference slate. So, like I said, that's going to do it for today's show. Man, I thank y'all for tuning in. And we'll be back on Sunday to recap all the SWAC football action. Actually, there's a game tonight. Don't forget Prairie View and Alcorn hook up tonight, 6:30, ESPNU. And then there's 4 games on Saturday. So we'll be back Sunday to recap all that action. And y'all, if y'all go in the game, man, please be safe. Y'all take care of yourself. And we'll catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.